Hey everybody, this is Anomaly with Dan and Ron. This is episode 5. We made it to the big, well I was going to say the big 5-0, but the big 05.
The big 5.0.
Yeah, the big 5.0.
Hey, and that's more than we have Twitter followers.
Yeah, we have more episodes than Twitter followers, so...
we're really moving up in the world, but to all 4 of you out there, maybe it'll be 5, maybe 6 by the time we're done. Hey, it's...
I'm officially dedicating the first 4 episodes, one apiece, to our Twitter followers. You can fight over which, who gets which one amongst yourselves, but...
And since I'm one of those 4, I willingly... cede. I will pick last. I will take the remainder. Hopefully, it won't be all 4, or if so, I will be quite happy to have all 4. Anyways, so this is. Let's see, what's today's date? It is Thursday, July 18th,
2019,
and we are outside. This is if you hear anyone that seems like a visitor, they're not.
Yeah, we're like taking it. We're taking it to the streets today.
Yeah, although
that's Elizabeth, the
pod guest.
The pod guest who is below us now.
Out in the
hey, street. She's saying hey. What's up? So today we watched Mac and Me. Some of you may know this as the biggest movie that Paul Rudd ever appeared in.
The first and biggest. He has not surpassed it yet.
Yeah.
Avengers getting close there, but Ant-Man was his own. Well, really, that was the Michael Douglas movie.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
With Paul Rudd.
Well, they couldn't give him his own movie without making him significantly smaller, apparently.
So I don't know. So for anyone who's not aware, every time Paul Rudd goes on a talk show, and he says he has a clip from his new movie, and they play the clip, and it's always a scene from Mac and Me in which a kid falls over a cliff,
in a wheelchair,
and into a reservoir, a lake,
ravine.
We looked up Mac and Me because we were really excited about Paul Rudd, and it turns out that Paul Rudd is not in Mac and Me, which we may have actually.
Well, we don't know who was in those alien suits.
Maybe that's what he was saying. When he was a kid, he played the little tiny alien.
Maybe.
Oh.
I mean, I thought some of the kind of odd movements looked familiar. He still drinks Coca-Cola with a straw. More on that later.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So the story. So Mac and Me. Oh, and we don't have any Inamarata this time, but we'll make sure to catch up on episode 4 and this episode at the same time. Except we're not going to make any mistakes this time.
Yeah, no, we're going to get right the first time.
Yeah,
Robert Ashley. I'm practicing getting it right the first time.
Wait, who's Robert Ashley?
He wrote and performed the only spoken word opera, the only opera that was ever specifically made for television.
Wow.
And he's a very, and I studied him pretty. That record in the dining room with the sunset that's kind of like purple and blue, that's one of his albums.
Okay.
In the frame.
Oh, yeah, what you're missing is that earlier today I brought over a whole bunch of LPs that we went through and found some neat finds in there.
Yeah.
3 crates.
A nominal P.
Nominal P. Wait.
A nominal P's.
There were 3 crates. 2 of them were in good condition, and 1 of them was covered in mold. So
yeah,
as good as some of the things in there may have been. Sadly.
I mean, to be fair, from what I looked at, there was a copy of Zuma by Neil Young that unfortunately got kind of trashed, but the vast majority of the good stuff was in the crates that did not get the mold, which is awesome, and they would have eventually met the same fate had Ron not helped them make the pilgrimage to this apartment. Despite their seeming alien to him, which brings us to tonight's movie,
Mac and Me,
which is a movie about, let's just give a plot overview, go from there.
So 4 aliens get sucked up by a... Wow, it already sounds so bad. I mean, good.
There's a lot of sucking.
Yeah,
like
there is
on multiple levels.
So this little spacecraft lands on what might be a moon of Saturn. Yeah, well, a moon of Saturn. It's getting samples, and these 4 aliens go up to kind of look at it and check it out. And in addition to picking up rocks, it's got this sort of vacuum cleaner kind of thing, and it sucks up the 4 aliens. And then it goes back to Earth, and the aliens end up there. They get separated from each other. 3 get stuck in the desert, and 1 finds his way into some kid's house.
Yeah, through his car.
Through his car with Christine how do you pronounce her name?
I never actually seen her in a movie.
Oh, really?
Tonight. Yeah, I didn't recognize anybody in this movie except for like the McDonald's arches and the Coca-Cola cans, the many, many, many Coca-Cola cans.
Christine Ebersole. I need to see the actual spelling too.
Oh, and Paul Rudd. I obviously recognized Paul Rudd when he showed up.
Yeah. In fact, Paul Rudd was in several roles.
I just kind of assumed that every actor in the movie was Paul Rudd, despite the opening credits sequence telling me otherwise. Anyway, so he goes into this car. He ends up in their house. They just bought this new house. It's just a mother and her 2 sons.
One of whom is in a wheelchair.
One of whom is in a wheelchair. They never explain what exactly happened to the father. I kind of thought they were setting that up by having it that way, but I think they just couldn't afford another actor. So
Christine Ebersole was the only one probably who got paid in this.
Well,
she was the A-list.
She reproduced asexually, and and that's difficult to do. Anyway, so the alien gets into the house, decides I'm going to be best friends with this kid in the wheelchair.
Hides from him for most of the movie.
Yeah, he's kind of doing that like thing where he's like kicking his feet under the desk to get his attention. What he actually does is he drills giant holes in the walls of this brand new house that they just finished moving into, and then he also cuts out a triangle in the door. He
reorganizes the whole living room. He just totally trashes it, basically. Although then later on in the movie, suddenly the whole living room is all cleaned up because the little alien kid cleaned it up for some reason.
Right, like he needs the humans' help to get to the desert, but he can power a television by himself remotely. He can blow things up with his fingers, we learn later in the movie. So he doesn't really need the humans there, except for the fact that he is apparently emotionally codependent in some form on other life forms.
Meanwhile, the alien's parents and older sibling are in the desert dying. Now they know that the little one, who's basically alien baby, another alien baby.
I'm the baby.
They kind of know where each other are because they do this weird thing in which they kind of cup their hands in a V formation, and they do something that sounds kind of like.
Oh yeah, they're like communicating like telepathically, but also through chanting. It's not really clear. Yeah, so as you can hear, we're live coming at you from the street. That's some of our fans.
Yeah, they're fine
in the background. It gets raucous here in the podcast studio sometimes, but we're used to it.
Oh yeah, they can talk to each other, so they know at least they're alive. But at least this kid is getting nourishment. Okay, well, actually, so just to cut to the chase, they're being chased sort of by men in gray suits, and the kids all manage to take the baby, whisk him away in a big chase scene. They find the parents and the sister in the desert. They revive them. Then there's this big scene in which the aliens all walk into a big giant grocery store. There's a bit of a gunfight. They blow up
the entire grocery store pretty much after they've already blown up a bunch of CRT televisions by walking by them.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think we jumped ahead too because we missed there was a dance sequence.
Oh wait, I figured we'd get back to that.
Oh, okay,
yeah. So there's a hint: the dance sequence in McDonald's. But so they blow up and they inadvertently kill the kid in the wheelchair, who's the one that's been there all along, and But then they revive him, they bring him back to life because it turns out they have all sorts of powers. And then the movie ends with the aliens being sworn in as American citizens.
Yeah, and it's kind of touching after the long, arduous, and frequently surprisingly dark journey you have been on with these aliens who we forgot to mention the most important part of the movie, which is they come from a planet, moon, satellite, whatever, where it's pretty much all barren rocks and desert, and they can only sustain themselves by drinking Coca-Cola through naturally occurring straws coming out of the ground. Because apparently instead of like mineral springs or natural gas or oil or what have you being under the surface of this planet, it is entirely Coca-Cola. They have not developed this civilization at all. I don't even know if I can call it a civilization, but somehow they figured out how to drill deep enough to get to the Coca-Cola.
Well, they don't have to go that deep. They just remember they have that, I don't know, the tube that the basically the big straw that they drink out of is only like a foot long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes down
that's true,
a little bit. So we know it's Coca-Cola is because this movie is like shameless about its product placement. The little alien baby is constantly drinking Coca-Cola, and that's how it sustains itself.
And if it doesn't drink Coca-Cola, it will die.
Yeah, and that's how towards near the end of the movie when they find the missing alien parents and sibling, they're practically dead. But they bring them back by feeding them Coca-Cola.
Yes.
And we see the Coke cans all over. There is a Coke can in almost every scene.
Yeah, it's like very centrally located. Like they will awkwardly position the actors like far. They'll like shoot it as a deep shot, like Jean Renoir, Rules of the Game. You know, there's 3 layers to this thing, but the only reason there's 3 layers is so that the Coke can seems that much more prominently in the foreground.
There is one scene with Christine Ebersole on one side. She's the mom, and her son on the left side. She brings him a sandwich. She places it on the table, and the Coca-Cola is right in the center.
On the plate.
Yeah, on the plate.
Like, who serves the Coca-Cola can on the plate? Like, you don't know where the bottom of the Coca-Cola can's been, you know, like... But anyway, she does it, and she also gives him a whole wheat tuna sandwich, which begins the film's motif, I guess we'll call it, of weird acronyms or abbreviations of things that don't really need them. So what was it? It's like a HOTU or something?
A toe,
yeah.
Tuna on whole wheat.
Right.
And actually beforehand, when there's the whole thing, when they first kind of see when the alien baby shows up and actually causes a car accident, the older brother says to the younger brother...
The first car accident, I might add.
Yes.
Of many.
I forget, what does he call it? Instead of a UFO, it's
It's a Mac, right? That's why the movie's called Mac. I mean, it's a mysterious alien creature.
Yeah.
And he says it like this is just standard American parlance, which maybe in the alternate universe in which this movie takes place it is. There are a lot of car accidents. By about 3/4 into the movie, I was asking myself, like, how many people need to die so that this shrimpy little thing with beady eyes can drink Coca-Cola? And given at least what the sound effects guy decided, I would put the casualty count, like not counting the kid, obviously, because he gets brought back, so that's like cheap, and I'm not giving him credit for that, but 4 car accidents at least, like you don't know how many people are in the cars
just the one
that
scene.
could go up.
Right,
yeah,
right.
But yeah, there were at least 2 scenes where the alien is just creating utter mayhem on the road.
Yeah. Now, well, in fairness, in the first one, he kind of runs out and he's splattered.
Mac.
He's the Mac. The Mac gets splattered against the window of a car, and that freaks out the driver, who goes and runs over into the wrong direction, and that causes the car accident. And another one, it's a whole pile up. So technically, not his fault. Later on in the movie.
Oh, well, later on in the movie, he's actually being chased by government agents. Mm-hmm. And while we were watching the movie, I made the comment like, oh, the government can't afford a single car for these guys to go after him in, right? Because there's like 6 or 7 FBI agents, and they all decide we're going to go after this kid going downhill in a wheelchair on foot because, you know, we are part of the law enforcement branch of the richest country in the world at that point in history. And now I realize why they did it, because anybody who gets in a car near the thing just dies.
That's true. They knew that this was the only way that they'll survive. There was a lot of death in this movie.
Yeah.
Really, there was only one death. There was a lot of death that should have happened. Somehow, in all these car accidents, or at one point, when the kid and Mac are going down the hill in the wheelchair, they're going by the driveways. It's a subdivision, and somehow everyone seems to be leaving at almost the same time, backing up out of their driveway, staggered. So that the kid's coming down, the wheelchair's coming down, the kid's coming down with the alien. Let's pull out now. Ah. Okay, next one. Oh, here he comes. Let's pull out now. Oh. And everyone ends up backing up into something and hurting their car, and the kid is fine.
Yeah.
And the alien is fine. And then his brother and the neighbors pick them up in a minivan. And then they drive off and go and find the parents. And that's where the movie becomes really, really dark, because they find them. They find the rest of the alien family,
and they look like very dead. And the camera like lingers on how dead they look.
Yeah,
and it's disturbing because he like this teenager is kind of flipping over these like rotted looking corpses, but of course they're not rotted, and they're not even actually corpses. It's just like how ugly the aliens look in this movie. Apparently, a Mac can never die. A Mac is sort of like a soda fountain or something. It just runs out of Coca-Cola. And somehow this teenage kid knows this preternaturally, has a giant cooler of Coca-Colas in the back of this minivan, and he just like brings them back to life in a like vaguely Christ-like manner. You know, they're in a cave, they're in the desert. There's a lot of like confused like Christ symbolism in this movie, which makes sense because it is sort of a confused. It's confused ET symbolism.
Yeah. Because
I don't think that the people who made this movie could actually believe in a god. Prove me wrong. But no, it was like really disturbing to see these just kind of and like the kids basically like poking them with a stick at first, and like I couldn't even, because we weren't watching, we did not watch this on a 70 millimeter print as was intended by the creators. We watched it on not the highest resolution copy, so I couldn't even tell they recorded. I was just like, oh, did they find like a secret treasure in the desert? I thought it was going to go like all Ark of the Covenant. Right, or Goonies. Yeah, I was thinking about Goonies too. And no, it's just like these, just like corpses. And half the time, like if the Mac isn't blowing things up or creating car accidents or like getting this poor kid in this wheelchair to chase him down a very steep hill into a ravine, he's sick. He's just sickly. He's just generically sickly, and they can't figure out what's going to make him better until they just start shoving Coca-Cola in his face.
I don't know. Is it worth describing how sickly they look, or is it just it's too much?
We're here.
So it starts. So let's see. They've got is a concave stomachs, which you can kind of make out with sort of rib cage-ish, or at least the outline of the rib cage. They've got some these weird spots. They're kind of like the black fungus on roses that can kill the rose. Oh, and their color is this kind of puce. Is that the right description? It's sort of like this ugly combination of pink and brown.
Yeah, they look like if you like stretched Jackie Mason's liver spots over a mannequin like that had been outside for a long time. Like, you know, Little Red Hot, like Harvey Comics, Little Red Hot, the little devil that in all the kids' comics with the, you know, he's got the pointy, like if he had done math and or had just some kind of horrific degenerative disease for a while.
And these giant kind of googly eyes, and they do this weird, they're constantly, when they're standing, they don't stand still, they do this kind of weird snake-like movement that's actually really creepy.
Oh, yeah, they move kind of like the monster in Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, so you just sort of immediately assume, because on this one level, the movie does achieve its objective, that the Coca-Cola is giving these alien, the Macs, life. But you could totally read that movie as just them going through withdrawal symptoms anytime they don't get enough Coca-Cola. And, like, definitely, when they find the dead Mac family in this, or not dead, dehydrated, whatever, Mac family in this cave in the desert. You know, it looks like it could just be like a junkie dead thing, like The Wire when they find like the guys that don't make it to the end of the season. Yeah, a lot of death, a lot of things that very things that only happen so that the rest of the movie can happen. It's as if the entire world is conspiring to make this movie happen within the world, as if they're like aware that nothing else exists in this universe except for this Mac and me narrative. Towards the end of the film, when the kid in the wheelchair dies, note that we watched this entire movie. For the life of me, I could not name a single character except the Mac, and obviously Coca-Cola can, which is the lead character.
I think somebody was named Eric, and I'm not sure who. Might have been the mom.
The mom was named Eric.
I've known about this movie for years, and I remember when it was in the theaters, and I remember reading a movie review about it. That's how well I remember this. You know, after reading that movie review, I obviously had no desire to see it. But there was one thing. I was at least discerning enough for that. But this movie came out in '88. Oh my God, it was '88. Let's see, E.T.
I
came
was
out
not
in '82.
born yet.
Yeah, and I was in let's see, I was in high school. The one thing I remember about that from the movie review, because it actually talked about the product placement, and I didn't realize just how egregious it was. It was. I mean, talk about gratuitous product placement. There were Skittles, which we saw right for a few times right in the middle. It was sort of a nod to E.T. And the Reese's Pieces, or outright ripoff. Plagiarism, yeah. Although I guess
to the point where at one point in the movie they even mentioned Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is another Steven Spielberg space movie. They're in the car, right, and they're driving through the desert. Somehow this 16-year-old kid, or 14 or 15, however old he is, who is shown earlier in the film as not being able to drive worth a damn, can somehow navigate himself through the desert, around all these places, drives like a race car driver practically, except when the Mac needs like car accidents to feed his whatever along with the Coca-Cola. Yeah, he shouldn't be able to drive. There was a point the product placement is incredibly ineffective, though, because I was expecting to go into this movie, and, I'm a guy where I watch Super Size Me in the theater, and intellectually I understood, this is disgusting, this is wrong, but the place where most of my actual thinking occurs, which is my stomach, I wanted McDonald's. And I've spoken to a lot of people where they're like, you know what? You see that many French fries in an hour and a half. Of course you wanted McDonald's. I wanted McDonald's. Ron wanted McDonald's.
I wanted McDonald's too.
And somehow we watched Mac and me, and at the end of this movie, I did not want McDonald's. I didn't really care whether I had McDonald's or not.
The neighbor, she's a teenager. She works at McDonald's. And there's an early scene in which the two brothers go there, really just because the older brother wants to get together with her. They just moved there. They're neighbors. He wants to meet her. He's smitten. But there's a birthday party at a McDonald's, and that brings us...
Which, to be fair, birthday party at the McDonald's was a big thing in the 1980s. I remember my older sister telling me about it. And I can still remember when I was younger, kids would have their birthday at the McDonald's because it had the pen with all the plastic balls you literally couldn't clean. I mean, I loved it when I was a kid. I'm not above that, and it probably I don't get sick very often, so I feel the ball pen at McDonald's, it was one of those things where if it didn't kill you from plague or disease, you probably, I feel it helped develop my immune system in ways that I've not fully appreciated until now.
So I remember I knew about the birthday party there because it is, again, from that review, this was beyond product placement. There is a whole dance scene at McDonald's that lasts about 5 minutes. I don't know how to describe it.
They show up to the McDonald's. The Mac is dressed as a teddy bear, which is also disturbing because there's a scene prior to that where the kid in the wheelchair and the little girl who's his crush, whatever, they need to go to this birthday party. her mother is picking them up, but they can't leave the Mac at home because the Mac is sick pretty much entirely so that he doesn't get left behind for this birthday party, because it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, he's not really sick before then. He's just going around making trouble. And
yeah, there's no real...
And in less than 30 seconds, this kid, the kid in the wheelchair, manages to skin his teddy bear a la Silence of the Lambs, cut out its eyes, and then make it into a Buffalo Bill style, like, bodysuit for the mysterious alien creature. And anyway, so they get to the McDonald's and...
So first there's starts off with a boombox, and there's a few people dancing, and there's some kids watching. And then they go inside, and the whole McDonald's has been taken over by this birthday party. So it's not just, in the corner and all that. The entire place has been taken over, and there's music playing. And suddenly, one person gets up to dance, and a second in this choreographed dance. And then, like, 3 other people get up to dance, and they dance that with the same choreography. And suddenly, half of the McDonald's is dancing in with the exact same choreography, like the exact same moves, perfectly timed, and that goes on for I'm guessing 3, 4, 5 minutes.
And what's kind of odd is, like, on a literal level, it's product displacement, right? Like, this McDonald's is busier than literally any McDonald's I have ever seen or set foot in my life, and I have set foot in a lot of McDonald's because when I was living on the road, that's where you can get Wi-Fi and use the bathroom easily in parts of the country where there's not really stuff for 30 miles at a time.
And you don't have to actually eat at the McDonald's to do that, because it's understood that you've eaten at another McDonald's somewhere else, so you've earned that right.
Oh yeah, you just get $1 coffee.
Okay.
Right? You just sit there and you nurse the coffee for a really long time, and, like, technically you're not supposed to sit there for more than 20 minutes, but they're not getting paid enough to, like, they get into a standoff with you to get you to defend the integrity of the McDonald's. They're not going to do that. So
the McDonald's bathroom.
Yeah, you fucking drink your coffee, do what you got to do, charge your phone, and you're good. Anyway, we don't see any. Okay, so there's sodas because the Mac has to steal this kid's soda at one point, but there's no food in the McDonald's. There's no tables in the McDonald's.
There's
no place conceivably where any of these people could have sat and eaten a hamburger.
Well, along the back.
Oh, yeah,
and the sides are some tables, but it's like you went into McDonald's and ripped up 2/3 of the tables and chairs, and then redid the floor so that you wouldn't see where you ripped them out of, so that there's room to dance in.
Yeah, like when you start considering, it looks like a dance studio with a couple McDonald's tables, and then there's like a shot that does not feel very continuous with the other shots of the people behind the counter with the menu above them,
and Mac in the disturbing Silence of the Lambs bear suit, dancing. But at one point even doing a quick tap dance. But he's dancing in that sort of weird, because of that weird kind of snaky movement that they do. And he is, it's not CGI. I don't know.
It comes out of nowhere, too. It's like against if there is an internal logic to this movie beyond Coca-Cola.
I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard time associating this movie with logic.
Well, right. But like you figure the McDonald's scene, it's like a scene out of a musical, right? The internal logic of movie musicals is kind of like, reality eventually has to erupt into this space where people can express themselves in these very, like, unnatural, non-social realism type ways. And that's cool. Like, I love Fred Astaire and all that kind of stuff. But the rest of this movie does not work on that logic. Kind of like the Coke can prominently displayed in the center foreground of this shot. This McDonald's dance sequence is almost exactly in the middle of the movie. It goes on forever. It doesn't match anything else in the movie, really, beyond the fact that it's product placement and it doesn't quite make sense. Why am I arguing about the internal consistencies of Mac and me?
Well, so I don't know if this is what you're getting at. In a musical, there's a story that goes along, and then people break out into song.
Because reality can't, or like straightforward reality can't contain the emotion of the situation, or something, or the the narrative needs to get to some place you can't get by just showing things literally.
Whereas this is more like, well, let's have a dance sequence so that we can place it in a McDonald's.
Right. And in doing so, we have to tear up most of the McDonald's. Like we should have made this a double feature with flooded McDonald's. Speaking of which, if anyone out there has a complete copy of the flooded McDonald's video, I have seen bits and pieces. I have loved that. If you don't know the flooded McDonald's video, I guess I should describe that kind of quickly. It's literally just a very long video of a fake interior of a McDonald's slowly being flooded with water and everything kind of floating around getting destroyed. And it's hypnotic. I can watch it. Well, I can watch the 3 minutes that are available on the internet on loop for hours. Apparently there's there's a 45-minute.
Was that how long numbers? No, I thought it was...
it's long, because it was an art installation, not really a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I guess however long it takes to flood a McDonald's, because it's in real time.
And it's a McDonald's set. It's not an actual McDonald's. They built this whole set for this purpose.
Yeah, no actual McDonald's were harmed in the making of this film.
Some Big Macs were in a set. But I did a search for it yesterday, and all I could find was the little snippets, the 3 minutes or so.
And I've been looking for the rest of it for a long time, but the snippets, like it feels so good. But Mac and Me, it's the same kind of... Because with the title, you kind of figure all the thrust of the product placement is going to be towards McDonald's.
Yeah, it's a given. We're expecting that.
And like McDonald's did buy the big full-page ad in the center of the magazine, so to speak, but they don't really... Like, there's a couple lines earlier in the movie where the two brothers are like, you know what I could go for right now? What could you go for? I could go for a Big Mac or something.
I knew it!
I could always go for a Big Mac. The mother in this film seemingly... I mean, like, the food that she feeds these children is like borderline, like, child protective services.
Well, there's the toe. There's the one tune on Whole Wheat.
Right.
That one. We see them going jogging.
Oh, wait.
We see
okay.
The mom and the kid, the main kid, they go jogging. I mean,
I guess
wheelchair,
his, like,
he's using
greatest,
his arms.
like... Oh, okay, that's
And
true.
they're both wearing sweatpants. So he's getting exercise. Yeah, so he's burning. But I mean, he's got to do a lot of that because I mean, she keeps shoving him. She's got a spigot in which she shoves the Coca-Cola down her kids' mouths.
Maybe after he felt the physical exhilaration of speeding down that cliff to his certain doom into that ravine, he realized that he was never going to get that kind of high again unless he got fatter and had more momentum going down the hill next time. So maybe it's an aspirational film in that sense. The Mac manages to kill him before the McDonald's / Coca-Cola / what have you does.
I'm sorry, I keep hearing you say slash, and we need to say it's a slasher film. Which, given all the death and the fact that at the end, when the Macs all raise the kid from the dead, they're the ones that killed him in the first place.
Right.
So there's a slash. There's a slash ring, a slashing. I don't know what the...
Right, it's like saying, like, we need to go into Iraq, and then 5 years later, we're the only people who can get us out of Iraq, or whatever, right? Like... But not 5 years later. It's literally right then, right there. The mother is flown in on a helicopter, literally just to be traumatized by the image of her dead son, who was then immediately brought back by
the people that killed him.
Space aliens. Yeah,
they're brought back to life by the people that killed him, or creatures that killed him.
Yeah, they have like magic take-back powers. There's no real consistency to... There's like things that repeat, but there's not a lot of internal consistency to the powers that are granted to these mysterious alien creatures, a.k.a. Max.
I can't remember if I touched this on this earlier. They're in the desert, dying, and they end up dead. Did I already mention this? Oh, well, except that they've probably spent 5 years in space inside... this little space capsule that goes back to Earth. They've been stuck inside of it. They're fine there. They have no sustenance. They have no nourishment. They certainly have no Coca-Cola. But somehow they can't survive 3 days, literally 3 days,
in the desert.
In the desert.
The thing is, the desert that they're stuck in, that they die in, or that, again, don't actually die in, it looks exactly like their home planet. This movie made me believe that if I went to the desert in Arizona, if I went to like Sedona and I went on a hike, and I got a big enough straw and jammed it into the ground next to me, I could drink Coca-Cola out of the ground. We don't really get a sense of what their home planet is. And I think like the filmmakers did sort of realize that, and that's why they put that part at the very end of them getting U.S. citizenship.
Because otherwise they'd have to send them back and...
They'd have to build a whole set, yeah. Like an actual homeworld set.
I don't know what else there is to say about this film.
I mean, I could go on all day. Like
about Mac and me.
Well, okay, so the kids, right? Like, isn't it kind of weird that in any movie where you have a child protagonist, the producer, director, whoever, always seems to be like, oh, well, we need another child protagonist. We need to balance it out. If the one child protagonist is a girl, then the other one needs to be a boy or something. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of force this, like, simulacra of adult romantic courtship and relationships on, like, really awkwardly onto these storylines. And this is not like a sin specific to Mac and Me.
It's just an example of it.
Yeah, just an example of like a larger weird trend in U.S. commercial cinema. Oh yeah, for some reason, like the older brother calls his the
next door neighbor,
and is like on the phone with the next door. Which, granted, this does not let Mac and Me off the hook because it was the '80s. I was going to use an example of like the mid 2000s. I knew a family where they would send each other instant messages in the same house.
Well, but that's now.
Oh yeah, they were ahead of the curve.
Yeah, okay.
At the time, it seemed very weird that people would do that. Although I guess like people have intercom systems in their houses.
This was our town. This was the neighbor, the boy and the girl. Setting up the metal cans and the string between them so they could talk to each other at night.
Right.
This was just the equivalent. The neighbor boy and the neighbor girl.
I mean, also kind of strange is that they could only afford to have two families in the narrative because they had to spend so much money on Coca-Cola. They just sort of like aggressively ship the younger sister and the younger brother, the older sister and the older brother, which I feel like not many... I don't know, have you ever known like a pair of siblings that were each dating their respective sibling? I mean, outside of obviously like Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. No, not even in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Oh, yeah, the Seven Brides weren't...
they weren't related. Yeah, the brothers, obviously the brothers were related.
I'm trying to think.
I mean, I'm sure it's happened on like Jerry Springer or something, but... And yet again, I am demanding realism from Mac and Me. So I guess to conclude, this movie did not represent life as I have lived it, and I want to make sure you all know that.
Well, the dance scene. I know. I could relate to that. Yes, that pretty much defines my life.
I mean, I've had weird shit go down at McDonald. Like before I realized I had the tism, I would just kind of like talk out of my ass. Yeah, the tism coming to a theater near you, and yeah, we were outside. I must have been at least like 13. But I'm like standing outside the McDonald's. I make some kind of crack about like the fries will kill you or something. Granted, I love eating the fries, but we're all gonna die someday. But anyway, the fry cook was sitting there, and he's twice my size because I have not had my growth spurt yet. And he's like, "You talking shit about my cooking, bro?" And I get scared shitless because I am still not really a man who has a lot of capabilities in hand-to-hand combat or anything like that. My friend's mom was leaving. I literally jumped into the trunk of their car and just kind of sat there. And then, like, thankfully he lived down the street from me, so they just dropped me off.
The fry cook?
No. My friend and his mother. The fry cook, I don't know where the fry cook Cook lived. For all I know, he lived in the McDonald. Oh, yeah, and McDonald's is like, I kind of love the fact that McDonald's is so omnipresent that it has kind of its own subset of urban legends, weird thing. Like, did I ever tell you about that guy who successfully robbed like 60 or 70 McDonald's consecutively?
One guy.
All right. So he figured out
60 different McDonald's.
Yeah, because they're like pretty much standardized in the layout. When they move the money back and forth, they might not be quite so standardized now after this guy did this. Again, my friend Ross told me this. I have not actually found the real story, so he could have been pulling my leg. This could be an urban legend. But anyway, on paper, it makes sense. He would go to these places. He'd work there for 2 days. It wasn't like nobody for 60, 70 McDonald's remembered his face enough for the cops to find him. There's like an empty space under the McDonald's where he was literally living under the McDonald's the 3 days he worked there. He would wait for the Friday, hold everybody up with a gun, and then run off with the money, and then get another job at another McDonald's.
Oh, wait. I know this. I met this guy once, and I went up to him and I said, "You were the best part of the Princess Bride."
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was the Princess Diaries.
and that guy's name was Heather Mastriani. He was challenging the binary even then. He was an outlaw in several ways. But, I love stuff. Like, I love the fact that McDonald's has, like, a secret menu and all the names are
you serious?
Yeah.
Well, like, what kind of stuff?
So it's like, when I say secret menu, it's like McDonald's doesn't necessarily say, like, they don't publish it and, like, hand it out to people that are VIPs or something. But if you go to a McDonald's and you say, like, I want a McShamrock.
Wait, that still exists?
Or not a McShamrock. It was...
That's a special...
No, McShamrock was on the actual menu, but there was... what was it called? You could buy a pie, the little fried pie.
Yeah.
And you could buy a flurry, and you could ask them to, when they're whipping the flurry, you could ask them to whip the pie into the flurry. Or there was the McGangbang, which is where you order a McDouble and a McChicken, and you instruct them to put the McChicken between the two beef patties of the McDouble. There's the McKinley, which is something like that, where it's just a lot of patties on top of each other. If you look up McDonald's secret menu items, you're going to have a good time. You never knew about the McGangbang?
I did not know about that. Wait, you did not just make up...
No, that's real. That's real. You can Google that.
McGangbang. Didn't someone in marketing actually stop for them to think, like, I like this name. What does it evoke?
Well, but the customers have the power. The customers came up with the name. The employees were like, you know what, that's fucking... The employees are like, I'm not getting paid enough to argue. I'm barely getting paid enough to serve you food without spitting in it.
In fact, it was a fringe benefit that you could work at a place where somebody orders a McGangbang, and you could say, yes, I'll be right up with that.
Right. God, there were other ones. I mean, there's also, like, there's international McDonald's items that are, like, weird. Well, they just opened a boutique McDonald's, actually. I think it's in New York City, where they're serving some of the foreign menu items. And it's just kind of strange how McDonald's projects itself into other cultures. Because, like, in China, McDonald's is a sit-down restaurant where you take a date. It's, like, foreign, exciting. It's kind of like how people in the U.S. don't know that Cafe Nero is just, like, kind of Euro trash Starbucks.
Oh, it's not an American
No.
It's an import?
Yeah, totally an import.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. They're like Starbucks over there. I'm trying to think of some of the other... I mean, there was the McPizza. That was very short-lived. There was the McSpaghetti. I forget. I don't think it was called McSpaghetti, but you could literally just get, like, when they would give you the stuff in the kind of styrofoam containers, you would just get this, like, styrofoam breakfast container filled with, like, lukewarm pasta with pasta sauce on it. There's the Mc lobster roll. Like, there has been a McDonald's lobster. There's also been a 7-Eleven lobster roll, which I have seen, and Elizabeth dared me to eat. I'm turning 30 in like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So after that, it's all downhill from there. Maybe I will eat a 7-Eleven lobster roll. At the time, I had a lot to live for. So I was like, no, I'm not ready to take these kinds of ridiculous ridiculous chances with my life.
So did you put a notch or something in that lobster roll to make sure that you're getting the one
the one that got away?
The one that got away. Well, the one that you said, are you gonna eat that?
Well, it was love at first. No. What are some of the other?
When I was in Japan, I think it was something like shrimp croquette. So I guess mixed shrimp croquette.
Oh, yeah, there's like McDonald's in India where you can't get a hamburger.
Okay. In Israel, the kosher McDonald's.
Oh, is there anything interesting in the kosher McDonald's? Like,
no,
like falafel bowls or anything? Or
no, just the meat is kosher.
Oh, okay.
There's no grilled cheese sandwich. That's not what I'm trying to say. Cheeseburger. There's no, you don't have
Oh, yeah, that's another secret menu item is you can ask for a McGrilled cheese and they just charge it as like a burger. They put an extra piece of cheese on it and just...
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You can ask them to just put like cheese onto the burger bun.
Oh, I know what I'm ordering at the next one. Well, but do they all know about it? Like, do the employees know that, you can order a McGrilled cheese?
Yeah, I think. Or at least, like, they have not put up resistance when I have tried. I never ordered the McGrilled cheese, but I've ordered the flurry with the pie in it, and it was... I have no regrets. It was pretty fun. Okay, my last thought about Mac and Me.
Okay.
Or for now, because this is a movie that sticks with you. We're going to be having thoughts about this for a long time. So Mac, they kind of force Mac into being an acronym, mysterious alien creature.
Which I didn't actually even catch until you pointed it out to me. I didn't realize he had just said an acronym.
And so that makes me wonder when you buy a McDonald's hamburger and it says 100% beef, is beef an acronym for something else? Is that the secret message of this movie? If anybody out there has inside information, obviously, contact us. We're open to having guests, especially guests that can give us the inside dirt on McDonald's on this podcast. We're putting out feelers, and hey, if you want to be felt, then, give us... Give us a call.
Bovine extra everlasting food?
Okay.
It's more like a food item or food product.
Bloated, environmentally
egregious.
Elastic, frozen.
Okay, McDonald's, please don't sue us. I don't think we said anything wrong about Coca-Cola, but please don't sue us. We definitely didn't say anything wrong about Skittles.
And I think that this podcast episode is going to leave you more hungry for McDonald's food than the film Mac and Me left at least me.
But not as much as Super Size Me did.
Right.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Also, they never define who the me is.
Yeah, it's unclear, because at one point it's the teenage... First you think it's the younger kid.
With the wheelchair, yeah.
With the wheelchair.
Wheels. We'll call him Wheels. We've all got wheels.
So it seems like it's him, because he's the one that's trying to get him. He traps him briefly, and it's Mac who saves him from after he falls into the ravine.
And like after 20 minutes, you're kind of shipping him and the alien just because you're like, I've committed myself to finishing this movie, and if this shit doesn't like happen soon, then there's no movie.
Right. And there's 2 points in which it could have been a much better movie. The first one was when the kid falls down the hill and into the ravine. And
they didn't do an instant replay.
And I just end it there. It's clear that the kid is dead. Maybe you have the mom come out and screaming, but that's
well, no, you have the credits roll, and then you slowly see his body surface to the top of the water.
Yes,
with his wheelchair. Oh, yeah. So the kid's, like, seemingly glued to his wheelchair. Like, there's a point where the older brother is in a moving car, moving, like, pretty fast, it seems like. The kid's going downhill on...
This is the big chase scene.
He's going downhill on his wheelchair, and somehow his brother picks him up, not even by the wheelchair, like he picks him up by his body, and somehow both he and his wheelchair make it into the car, and this, like, the older brother must be secretly on steroids or something, because there's no way you could do that. When they get him out of the lake, he's like in his wheelchair practically before he's even out of the lake or ravine or whatever it is.
Yeah, when Mac saves him, so Mac is the one that saves him and takes him out of the water in the ravine, but he doesn't just bring the kid out, he brings him out in the wheelchair.
It's a package deal, yeah.
I guess, okay, then calling him Wheels is appropriate, because we almost never see him, like, well, it's not that we almost never see him outside of the wheelchair. The wheelchair never leaves him, even in cases when it should.
Yeah, I think that underscores an important thematic motif in the relationship between Wheels and the Mac, which is that they both they exist at the margins of society. One of them is a cyborg. One is an alien who has just fallen to Earth. He is part young boy, part wheelchair.
Wow, now it's really unfortunate that we didn't watch an episode of Super Friends.
Oh, yeah, we didn't watch the cyborg episode. Yeah. We didn't get to watch an episode of Super Friends this week. We will get back to it next week. We just kind of hit some scheduling. It took a lot of Coca-Cola to get us to the point where we are recording this episode now.
And there was pizza involved too.
There was some pizza.
Oh, and a cat.
And two cats.
Two cats.
We kind of went from cat to cat, party to party, to backyard to yard, to cat. So yeah, I guess, and do we have any final thoughts?
No, we did about 15 minutes ago.
Well, I thought they were final, but then I kept having more of them.
Yeah. Do we have any final thoughts? Well, this is another fine example.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
This is another fine example of where we watch the movie so that you don't have to. However,
this is a lot better than Frogs, though.
Yeah,
better is relative, but I don't want my money back. Right, I didn't pay for either, but the other one, I kind of like, if my time is worth even a smidgen of money, I want that money back.
Right.
This time, it was worth it to see the kid fall in the lake.
Yes. Not as worth it to see him get pulled out of the lake. Oh, right. But that was the other satisfying ending would have been when after the Macs blow up the store and they kill the kid by accident. If they tried to raise him from the dead and they failed. So you see everybody crying, the Macs try, they fail, roll credits.
Right.
That would have been the other satisfying ending. But yeah, I don't feel
keyboard cat, and then that Walker Texas Ranger clip where Haley Joel Osment says, "Walker, I have AIDS." That would have been. You ever see that? They used to play that on the Conan O'Brien with the video of the keyboard.
No.
Or it would be like, did you ever see Walker Texas Ranger?
Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't exactly. I saw an episode. I watched the commercials.
Yeah, like Haley Joel Osment before Sixth Sense, when he's just like this baby with seemingly no eyes. He never had eyes, really. I was always really impressed he was able to be that expressive without eyes. But anyway, the short clip, I've never seen the whole episode, but he walks up with the saddest puppy dog look I've ever seen. And he just goes, "Walker, the doctor told me I have AIDS." And then somebody says, play him out, keyboard cat. And it's just this cat playing a small electronic keyboard. And that I believe is actually the lost original ending to Mac and Me in the cut, where it ends with with Wheels falling into the ravine.
And that's why Paul Rudd keeps showing that.
Right.
On every show. He knows that's the real ending.
He's trying to tell us something very important.
This is an occurrence at Owl Creek Ridge. Ridge or Bridge? I forget. Whatever.
I mean, I've made up the last 5 minutes practically. Well, no, I didn't make it. That was on the Conan O'Brien show, but there is no original.
The rest is the kid's fantasy. He falls into the ravine. He imagines, in that brief instant, right before he dies, he imagines himself being pulled out by a little alien baby, and then getting him to kind of reveal himself with Coca-Cola, this fantastical dance routine in the McDonald's. And then finally, he really dies. That's roll credits.
Okay, let's take it even a step further. What if the Mac is actually Wheels? It's just that Wheels' dead body come back to, the entire movie is Wheels' life flashing before his eyes, and the Mac because of his withered, strange appearance, is a representation of his lost innocence in childhood, haunting him, following him, and his eventually coming to peace with it.
When he undergoes this metaphor, it's really a metaphorical death, and coming back from the dead, rising to life in something like that.
I mean, the other thing is that, like, Coca-Cola will not bring you back from the dead, but it will take a ring stain out of a wood table. I'm not making that up. Look it up. It will take sweat stains out of the armpits of your old shirts. It will break down concrete relatively quickly if it's dumped onto concrete. It just won't do anything that was shown in the film Mac and Me.
All right, we watch this so that you don't have to. But like you said, I feel like I got my money's worth.
Well, you could get the clip show version on, if you just look up Mac and Me on YouTube, you're going to get the kid falling into the lake, and you can repeat it. If you just run that on loop for an hour and 40 minutes, you will have a better feature film than we got.
Just wait for Paul Rudd to have a movie out, and then you watch it. So this way, it's like a special occasion. But do watch the McDonald scene. That's got to be online. That's got to be available online.
Conspiracy theory. So the government created deep fakes. Deep fakes where you can, like, replace people's faces in videos, and it's, like, pretty convincing.
Uh-huh.
They created that so that retroactively Paul Rudd could be in Mac and Me.
Oh, right, because that was how we got and thought about Mac and Me in the first place, was talking about it a few episodes ago, and that was actually a correction of reality, is that Paul Rudd should have been in Mac and Me.
Right, and it's like one of those things where Doctor Who, there's like a rift in the space-time continuum. They call in Doctor Who, and they're like, all right, the universe is going to collapse in a space-time continuum, excuse me, not the universe. The space-time continuum is going to collapse in on itself if you don't go back in time and put Paul Rudd into Mac and Me.
So that little bit of music there that you just heard was me confirming that the Mac and Me McDonald's dance scene is available on YouTube. Gotten 1.2 million views.
Almost as many as our podcast.
We're just a few shy. If all of our listeners in Slovakia can just get their friends,
but I appreciate it. You're trying to keep us humble. We don't want to pass that 1.3 million threshold before we're ready.
Right. I have at 1.29 and I'm good.
Yeah. I don't want it to go to my head.
All right.
Cool.
Well, I guess that's it.
Yeah. So we'll see you next week. And
this is Ron.
This is Dan. And this is Anomany.
Take care.